Children, having understood what is GST and what are the various types of GST, now we move on to the next very important concept of GST. GST in trading chain. Now children, what is the main aspect of GST in trading chain? What is the most important thing which you have to understand is what is input tax credit, ITC. Input tax credit, ITC. We are into what? We are into GST in trading chain. And what terminology we are here to understand? We are here to understand input tax credit, ITC. Let's read the entire definition, understand what is input tax, what is output tax, and how GST is calculated. Children, this is most important, as I said number of times. If children understand this, they are through with the trading chain sums. Otherwise, it's a bit complex from their side. Let's start. GST is levied and collected at every stage of trading chain from manufacturer to consumer. The very first point to be noted, that right from manufacturer to the point where it is consumed, that is consumer, right? GST is levied on. So GST is levied and collected at every stage, of trading from manufacturer to consumer. Next, when a trader pays GST, we'll emphasize one by one, word by word. When trader pays GST at the time of purchase, when the trader pays GST at the time of purchase, it is called as input tax. So if a trader is purchasing some article from some other trader, it is termed as input tax. And when he collects, so when can he collect? Only when he sells the item. And when he collects GST at the time of sale, the trader, mind you, it is called as output tax. So when he is paying some kind of amount to some other trader, he is going for input tax. And when he collects while selling, while purchasing, he is paying input tax. While selling, he is paying output tax. The tax paid is always termed as output tax, right? So I'll read it once again. Trader pays GST at the time of purchase is termed as input tax. When he collects GST at the time of sale is termed as output tax. These two terminologies are very, very important. What next? At the time of paying GST to the government, because in the questions will be of this kind. What is the GST? Net GST paid by dealer, net GST paid by retailer, net GST paid by consumer. At times it will be referred that what is the GST government receives, right? So at the time of paying GST to the government, a trader deducts the input tax from the output tax and pays the remaining tax. Those who are finding it a bit difficult, the last statement, we have many things to understand. Once again, at the time of paying GST to the government, a trader deducts the input tax, subtracts means, from the output tax and pays the remaining tax. This deduction of input tax is called as input tax credit. The deduction which is being made from output tax, right? This is termed as input tax credit, ITC. Still I feel that there are many who are still not have understood 100%. So here we have an example. And after this also, I'm going to give you an example to make the picture more clear, right? So thus, let's say what is the central idea of these 4 or 5 lines. Net GST payable is output tax minus input tax credit. Net GST payable is output tax minus input tax. Even if you don't write down input tax credit, fine. Output tax minus input tax. What is net GST payable? The formula is output tax minus input tax, right? So let's see how the system in trading chain works. A manufacturer is selling some article. He has manufactured. So he is going to sell some article. So say he is selling some article to the wholesaler, or you can say distributor. The wholesaler or distributor is not going to keep the article for himself or herself, but natural, the sale is going to go further. So wholesaler or distributor further sells that article to retailer. And now retailer selling it to the consumer. So do we have a trading chain from manufacturer to wholesaler, wholesaler to retailer, and retailer to consumer? Right? Here we go. Since this manufacturer is selling an article to wholesaler, whenever in a trading chain a person who is selling will always collect output tax, will always collect the output tax, right? So manufacturer is going to collect the output tax. So when this manufacturer is selling, he is going to collect output tax. Then who is purchasing from him? It is the wholesaler who is purchasing from him. So for wholesaler, the same output tax for manufacturer shall become input tax. Why? Because when the trader pays GST at the time of purchase. So it is the wholesaler who is purchasing from manufacturer. Wholesaler is purchasing from manufacturer. So it is this wholesaler is going to pay input tax. Point to be noted, whatever is the output tax for manufacturer shall be the input tax for wholesaler. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. The very first important point to be noted, whatever is the output tax by the manufacturer shall be equal to the input tax for the wholesaler. Right? Now, in turn, the wholesaler is going to sell it to retailer. Right? So once again, one is selling the item and other is purchasing the item. So while wholesaler is selling the item, he is going to collect output tax. And on the other hand, when retailer is purchasing the item from the wholesaler, he is going to pay the input tax. Whatever is the output tax collected by the wholesaler is the input tax paid by the retailer. Are you getting me? Now, again the retailer is going to sell that. So when he is selling, he is going to collect output tax. He is going to collect the output tax. Now here, to whom is he selling? He is selling to the final person, which is consumer. The consumer is that person who will pay the final GST. Since that particular item is not traded further, our trading chain stops here. That's what our purpose is, GST in trading chain. So the chain started from manufacturer, finally it comes to an end to a consumer. Now since this particular consumer is not selling it further, then there is no input tax and output tax. What this consumer is doing is, he is paying the sale price plus GST. He is paying the sale price of the article, whatever is the sale price, plus GST. So there is no further trading chain, so there is no input tax, output tax for consumer. Are you getting me? I hope the picture has now become more clear. Now to understand the same thing, let's take an example. Within the same chain, let's take an example. So I think so I made my best to make you understand what is input and output as far as the manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer and consumer is. Let's take within the same chain an example. Say a manufacturer is paying, or rather he is selling an article. He is selling an article for ₹1,000. He is selling the article for ₹1,000. Now to make our calculation very simple, let's make the GST is at the rate 10% GST. So whatever I'm writing over here above the arrow is the selling price, at the same time the rate of GST. As I said, to make my calculations very simple, throughout the chain my GST is 10%. My GST is 10%. Fine. So we start our calculation now. The manufacturer has sold the article to wholesaler for ₹1,000. What is the net GST rate? 10%. Is he going to take some output tax since he has sold that particular article? So on selling, he collects output tax. 10% of 1,000 works out to be 100. So 100 is the output tax collected by manufacturer. 100 is the output tax collected by manufacturer. As I stated earlier, whatever is the output tax for manufacturer shall be the input tax for wholesaler. So, how much is that wholesaler is paying? Wholesaler is not only paying 1000 rupees for the article, at the same time he is paying 100 rupees. So, the net purchase price for wholesaler will be 1000 plus 100 because he is paying that 100, right? So, for him the net purchase price is 1100, 1000 plus 100. So, shall I say the output tax which the manufacturer collects is 100 is the input tax. So, shall I say this input tax is also 100? So, output tax of manufacturer is equal to the input tax of wholesaler. Picture is clear? Now, wholesaler in turn is going to sell that article. Say, for example, he is selling that article for, let's make our calculation very simple. So, rupees 1500 and again 10% GST as I stated earlier. So, now when he is selling to the retailer, is he going to collect the output tax? As we have said at the time of sale, they are going to collect. So, what is the output tax collected? The output tax, OT means output tax, IT means input tax. OT means output tax, IT means input tax. So, what is the output tax collected by the wholesaler? 10% of 1500, that works out to be 150. 10% of 1500 works out to be 150 children, right? So, what is the net GST paid by the wholesaler? I have used the word net GST, whereby which I did not use any kind of word over here. Why? Because here, if I have to say what is the net GST paid by the manufacturer, the net GST paid by the manufacturer is 100 because there is no input tax over here. Had we had something previous to this, further ahead of it, say raw material provider, then the story is different. But here there is no input tax. So, ultimately the manufacturer pays 100. Output tax. Here input tax is 100. Output tax is 150. So, what is the net GST paid by the wholesaler? As per the formula which I have stated, net GST payable is output tax minus input tax. So, it is 150 minus 100. Answer is 50. Let me write down with a different marker so that you can understand. The answer is 50. This is the net GST payable. This is the net GST payable, mind you. By whom? By the wholesaler to the government. He is going to pay the difference of output and input in the trading chain. So, he has already paid 100 rupees to the manufacturer. He is collecting 150 from the retailer. So, how much extra is he collecting? He is collecting extra 50 rupees. 150 minus 100. So, that extra 50 rupees is going to go to the government. So, up till now, how much rupees have gone to the government? 100 from the manufacturer side, 50 from the wholesaler side. So, as of now, 150. Till here, how much has the amount reached to the government? 150. Now, whatever is the output tax collected by the wholesaler shall be the input tax by the retailer. Why? Because he is purchasing. If he is selling or he is a seller, he is a purchaser. So, again, 150 is the output tax shall become the input tax for retailer. Shall become the input tax for retailer. Right, children? Now, retailer in turns sells to the consumer. Say rupees 2000. For rupees 2000, again at the rate 10%. Again, since he is selling the item, he is going to collect the output tax. So, what is the output tax collected at the rate of 10% of 2000? 200. So, the output tax collected is 200. The output tax collected is 200. So, what is the net GST payable by the retailer? What is the net GST payable by the retailer? It is output tax which is collecting from the consumer, 200, minus the input tax credit which he has already paid to the wholesaler, which is 150. So again, that also works out to be 50. That also works out to be 50. So this is net GST payable by retailer. Right? So 100 from the manufacturer side, 50 from the wholesaler side, difference mind you. Retailer 50, difference mind you, output minus input. Now comes the consumer. Who is the final end user? Who is the final end user? So for him, there is no input and output. He has to pay GST. So what is the actual price for the customer? The sale price, which is 2000 plus GST. As I stated, the GST over here is 10%. So how much is he paying? He is paying 2000 as the sale price of the article plus 200. So the net price paid by the retailer, or consumer, the net price paid by the consumer is 2000 plus 200, which is 2200. Now children, only to cross check yourself, how much is the tax paid by that consumer? 200 is what you can see in bifurcation here. 50 which is paid by retailer, 50 which is paid by wholesaler, sum this, 100 plus 100 which is already paid by the manufacturer. So sum up this also, 50 plus 100, total is 200. Total is 200. So how much government gets it? The government gets rupees 200 as GST in this trading chain. 100 which is being paid by the manufacturer. For him, it's only the output tax which he's paying to the government, since there is no input tax. Then the first trader comes in between, wholesaler. He pays also input tax. He sells, so he collects also. Difference is the net GST. Then comes the second trader, which is in terms of retailer. He pays also. He collects also. The difference is what? The net GST. And finally, the consumer who pays sale price plus GST. Now children, those who have this particular query in our sum that the GST paid is by the consumer is 200 and then in the chain it is 200, which is 400. No. Let me tell you. We are learning GST, which is goods and service tax. So mind you, one thing to be noted, the person who is the end consumer, that is end user, the person who is using the article, right? That is the person who is going to pay the total GST. It is the end user who is going to pay the total net GST. So the net GST paid by the consumer is 200. Now we have shown that how this 200 got bifurcated in the trading system. So it is 50 by retailer, 50 by wholesaler and 100 by manufacturer. Right? And that's the reason we are saying that it is the credit. Because they are collecting also. If this wholesaler has paid 100 to the manufacturer, he has already collected 150. Mind you, if wholesaler has paid 100 to the manufacturer, if you are thinking that he has already paid 100, don't you think so he has collected also 150 from the retailer? So what is the net tax he is having extra in his hand? And 150 minus 100, which is 50, which is going to go and pay to the government. Here also the same thing works out. If this retailer has paid 150, then he's collecting 200 from the consumer. So GST is nothing but the service tax, goods and service tax paid by the consumer, the end user, whosoever the end user is. He is the person, she is the person to pay the entire GST. Keep this in mind. In trading chain, that net GST paid by the consumer, the end user, is bifurcated. So one can say that on summing up all the intermediate GSTs, we get nothing but the final amount of GST here. On summing up the intermediate GST, we get the net GST finally paid by the consumer. Please keep this in mind. Don't get confused in trading chain. People do get confused. That's the reason. Once again, finally I made you understand, those who are thinking in that direction, that this is how it works. Right?